The game. Ohio State and Michigan fans cannot get enough analysis. So here's more from the voice of college football. Please check out the other videos that we have provided with content creators like Steve Dace, Isaiah Hull, and others. Analysis from us, of course, here at the voice of college football. Check out our Ohio State and Michigan channels as well with call-in shows and our weekly live streams. All right. This is a practice that we've gone through each and every year with Ohio State and Michigan, lining up the common opponents and seeing if we can find any kind of trends in regards to how these two teams have fared against common opponents. When there's one, doesn't much matter. 2, 3, 4, it starts to become a trend when you see one team dominant more so than the other. However, let's keep in mind, of course, without the divisions, these teams have only played 4 common opponents. In the past, there would be 5 in division. Then there would typically be 1, 2, or 3 outside the division, so 6 or 7 common opponents. 4 for Ohio State and Michigan this year. Oregon, Michigan State, Northwestern, and Indiana. Let's check out how they both fared against the Ducks. Please like the video and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. And again, Ohio State live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Michigan live Tuesday at 8. The call-in show's on Thursday. Buckeyes against the Ducks. Of course, this one came down to the wire. One of the best games in college football, and the 2 top teams in the conference and the country right now. Buckeyes lost by 1. Of course, Will Howard did not get into his slide in time to kick the game-winning field goal. There was a controversial play against Jeremiah Smith late in the game on the push-off. Otherwise, the Buckeyes would have had the opportunity to kick the game-winning field goal. Ducks won 32-31. First downs, it was Ohio State by 4, but Oregon slightly outrushed and outpassed the Buckeyes, both per play and in total yardage, rushing and passing by 32 total yards. Ohio State hit on a 6 of 14 third and fourth down conversions. They gave up 7 of 16, and they lost the turnover battle 1-0, and that probably proved decisive. Oregon went to Michigan, and the Wolverines put up a fight. At one point in this game, they got to within 28-17. I believe that was early fourth quarter. And then Michigan had an issue on a punt that led to a Ducks field goal because Michigan, down just 11, had stopped Oregon. But then with the punt violation, that gave the Ducks the football, and they took control. Of course, scored late with a meaningless touchdown unless you put money against the line. Oregon won 38-17. They had 12 more first downs. They outgained Michigan by 200 yards of total offense, by a full yard per carry, by 2 yards per pass. Michigan could only convert 4 of 13 third and fourth downs. Oregon 10 of 15, that's 66.7%. And Michigan did have a 1 turnover advantage, but lost by 21 points. Ohio State, Michigan State early in the season, 31-point win for the Buckeyes, 38-7. They led 17-7 at half and then blew out Sparty on the road. 10 more first downs for the Buckeyes, 138 more yards rushing, 99 more passing. That's 237 total yards in the Buckeyes' favor. Much more productive in the running game at 3.4 yards per carry advantage over Sparty. 11 of 21 in first downs. Anytime you're over 50% conversion on third and fourth downs, that's good. Ohio State held Michigan State to 2 of 10 and won the turnover battle 2-0 after Michigan State kept it close early. Michigan State completely outplayed Michigan early in the game in the first quarter, but could only get to a 7-0 lead. They had a turnover deep in Michigan territory. Otherwise, it's Spartans 14-0, but Michigan persevered and outplayed Sparty in the second half, 24-17. First downs almost even. Michigan State outgained Michigan by 44 yards rushing, 43 passing, nearly the same ratio per play. Michigan 7 of 12 on third and fourth down. Michigan State 9 of 17. And Michigan lost the turnover battle by 1, but they squeaked out a 1-score win. Ohio State went to Northwestern a few weeks ago and almost gave up 2 opening drive touchdowns. So the first time the Wildcats got the ball, they drove inside the 15-yard line. Then Jack Sawyer forced a fumble. Then Northwestern got the ball back, drove all the way down the field for a game-leading touchdown, 7-0. Ohio State went for it on fourth down at midfield. Otherwise, Northwestern may have had a 7-0 lead in the ball at midfield, but Ohio State converted the fourth down, and then the floodgates opened and Ohio State dominated the game, winning 31-7. Workmanlike effort for Ohio State, outgaining Northwestern by 169 yards, 3.5 yards per carry, almost 5 yards per pass. The Buckeyes more effective in third and fourth down conversions, 6 of 13 versus Northwestern's 8 of 12. Northwestern and Michigan, the Wolverines, this past weekend exploded. They had not scored 30 points in a game this season. They put up a 50-burger on the Wildcats, 50-6. 17 more first downs, 190 more yards rushing, 78 passing. They just completely annihilated Northwestern after it was a fairly close game at 10-6 in the first half. Michigan converted 12 of 17 on third and fourth down and held Northwestern to 33%. Wolverines 50-6. And then the game that is probably the most meaningful, Indiana, of course, is a 10-1 football game. Ohio State finally notched a loss against the Indiana record this season in Curt Cignetti and the Indiana football team that's still ranked top 10 in the country. So the Buckeyes won by 23, 38-15. Indiana scored a late touchdown. Ohio State scored an extremely late touchdown. So basically it was 31-7 when it was competitive. Indiana had a couple more first downs, but the Buckeyes dominated both on the ground and certainly through the air, outgaining the Hoosiers by 133 yards passing and almost 4 yards per pass and almost 2 yards per rush. The two teams were equally effective on third and fourth down. The turnover margin equal. Michigan at Indiana. Hoosiers broke out 17-3 with primarily the passing game working for them. Few big plays, 2 impressive drives in the first half. Again, the Hoosiers led 17-3. Michigan got themselves back in the ball game, and if they could have converted inside the 10-yard line, they would have won the game. For example, they got a turnover off a Curtis Rourke interception inside the 5-yard line. Couldn't score a touchdown. Michigan loses 20-15, but again, the defense was exceptional in the second half, giving up just 18 yards on 25 plays by Indiana. But they did get outgained through the air by 69 yards. But this was a near dead even game as Michigan converted 7 of 17. Indiana only 4 of 12. Turnovers not a factor in this one. Total it all up, and Ohio State was 3-1 against these 4 teams. Michigan 2-2. Ohio State much more effective scoring, of course, as they scored a plus 77 versus plus 25 for the Wolverines, and that's after they outscored Northwestern by 44 last weekend. Ohio State gained more first down margin, plus 14 versus plus 6 for Michigan. The rushing advantage is pretty substantial, plus 279 versus plus 104. So for Ohio State, they're outgaining these teams rushing the football by about 85 to 90 yards per game. And then for Michigan, it's more like 30 yards per game. Passing, Ohio State plus 263, Michigan minus 51. So Ohio State outgaining these 4 teams by 542 yards. Michigan only outgained them by 53 yards. Yards per carry, Ohio State, that's the combination of the rushing game, but also the rushing defense, of course, factoring equally in these measurements. So it's not just the offense, it's the offense and the defensive efforts here, because it's a gap between Ohio State and Michigan versus the opponents. And you see that Ohio State was much more effective running the football and passing the ball, plus 7.4 yards per pass. Michigan, negative 5 yards per pass. Third and fourth down, Ohio State actually slightly less effective than Michigan, but it's pretty much a wash, as Michigan slightly over 50%, Ohio State slightly under 50%, and then both teams limiting their opponents to about 40% conversions on third and fourth down. The turnover margin inconsequential there. And of course, the recent history of this series is that Ohio State dominated after 2001 when Jim Tressel took over, winning 17 of 19 in the series. And most recently, since Urban Meyer took over in 2012 through 19, the Buckeyes won 8 straight and outscored the Wolverines by 115 points. Michigan, of course, the last 3 years has won the Big Ten Championship and a natty in defeating the Buckeyes 42-27, 45-23, and 30-24. So outscoring the Buckeyes by 43 points the last 3 games and winning all 3 against Ohio State. We will see if it swings back to the Buckeyes as a 21-point favorite on Saturday. Your thoughts about Ohio State, Michigan? Common opponents. It's always a fun breakdown. Again, Michigan live shows every Tuesday and Thursday night. The call-in shows on Thursday. Ohio State, we've got shows on Monday and Thursday night. And also join us for Buckeyes Live Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Please like and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.